U.S. fighter aircraft shot down an object threatening flights over Alaska just days after downing a Chinese spy balloon. And it's interesting because they're not really saying exactly what this thing is. They're saying it's was at 40,000 feet. My personal thoughts on this thing, it could be a drone, it could be a balloon. I don't know. They're not saying. The other thing too, which I think is important, is understand is that, right. This is right after the Chinese spy balloon incident, and we get headline after headline after headline. This couple of the things of the spy balloon incident was the U.S. is saying it was maneuverable. Also, too, that it had a bunch of cameras and it was part of a much larger program. And so now that we're finding another object over Alaska is certainly something of concern. I would say it could be Russian as well, or it could just be some random person, civilian, which I think there's probably a low chance of that. But I'm just saying it could be. But if I had to guess, I would say maybe Russian or Chinese. But we'll see. They're saying also that it was going to be threatening civilian aircraft somehow. It didn't really say how. It just says traveling at an altitude that made a potential threat to civilian aircraft. So I guess this thing's floating around and they're thinking that just some plane might hit it. Also, too, they're saying President Biden ordered the military to take down the object, and they did. That was coming from Kirby at the press conference. More official statement was no affirmation indications of military threat. Okay, so I think mostly, again, they're saying it was just some sort of threat to civilian planes. And then they were saying it was roughly the size of a small car. There's not a lot of info on this. Like literally, this was just about 40 minutes ago as I was just reading through the stuff. And we'll see if there's any more, and we'll keep up to date on that. Inflation has 75% chance of rebounding or remaining high, top economist warns, and that's according to Mohammed El Ryan, and he goes on TV all the time to state his opinion. I would agree that I don't think necessarily prices are going to come down, quickly. What the exact percentage on, who knows, but he's saying around 75% chance. There was a big news regarding inflation and things like that. Russia said they're going to be decreasing the amount of oil that they're going to be outputting. And so if you guys understand, basically you decrease output, which is decrease supply, that should make oil prices go up, which will cost businesses more money. And when those things kind of happen, put together with, say, CPI data, which comes out on Tuesday, we'll see what the Fed, how they respond to that, how they think about that. We do know, though, publicly, this is yet another Fed person. Just a couple of days ago, 4 of them went out and said, hey, guys, we're going to raise interest rates, keep them elevated, etc. Here's yet another one. This is headline. Fed Harker favors rates above 5%, says odds of soft landing grow. So again, I always repeat the same thing. The Fed always tries to give you the rosiest scenario. However, if the rosy scenario is, soft landing possible, but we have to keep rates above 5%, that sort of tells you where we're going. I think they're serious about having higher rates, and for whatever reason, the markets weren't taking them seriously for a while. Who knows? This is the quote from Harker here. We actually are increasing the odds we can get a soft landing. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods. It's still possible, but I think we can avoid that by just being prudent. So he's saying a couple more 25 basis points rate hikes, and then he says we need to get above 5. We're really close to that right now, and then pause. How about 5? We'll see. And he's talking about 5 in terms of the percentage points. Now, regards to sort of the American consumer, it matters because, right, for companies that make money, essentially for the markets to go up, companies need to be profitable, and you need people to be buying stuff, be it, your makeups, your shoes, any number of things. And there's a couple of things that I noticed in the headlines, which I don't think people are going to necessarily be talking about, but they should be. But I get it. The headline today will probably be the object being shot down over Alaska. So the headline here is that the COVID emergency in the U.S. will end on May 11th. So officially, that's when the government says it's no longer an emergency. Now, this matters because there's a bunch of different sort of policy things that were in place because of COVID, right? So I'll give you a simple example. There was a time, and I don't know if it's still going on today, but where we could just get a free COVID test, like, for example, or free testing kit, these kind of things. There's 2 different things, right? The testing kit would be like sent to your house, maybe COVID test, you go to, say, CVS, that kind of stuff, or even the vaccine, right? So they could theoretically charge money for vaccines in the future. I'm saying theoretically, but because essentially what you're doing is you're sort of, budgeting out, and you're saying, okay, there's an emergency, we have a certain amount of spending for that. So another example would be like, hey, it's a COVID emergency, and we're going to put student loans on hold. We're also going to be, forgiving a bunch of student loans, right? So if it's not an emergency, then you would forgo those kind of policies. Another example, which is interesting as well, is like, say, the food stamp program. So during an emergency, if people can't work, et cetera, then you have to give them stimulus and said food stamps, and those things, these kind of things will end. They're saying this is to be $258 a month for some people, and these are the states where it'll be affected. So quite a lot of states actually, and you guys can see the map for yourself. And so add all this stuff together, people will start to feel the pain and the change in policies if they haven't gone back to work already. And now this is some of the thing that matters as well. Remember, we talk about quite a lot that there are layoffs, say in the tech sector. We talk about this every day. However, say like your Walmart is hiring, say your Chipotle is hiring, these kind of things. And then this will probably force people to go back to work when you start to end some of these benefit programs, right? I'm sure you guys understand this. Now, speaking of benefits, this is an interesting one. ChatGPT has been in the news quite a bit. I was just checking it this morning, and it is up and running, at least on my end. I was looking at the other day because we were talking about, say, Google and stuff like that. And ChatGPT is now going to start charging, get this, $20 a month. So they're saying that if you want to stay on the free plan, you can use it when there's no demand. You're going to get a slower speed, and you'll get like regular updates. Now, if you pay the $20 a month for ChatGPT, they're saying you're going to be able to use it even when demand is high. So I guess it'll always be open. It'll answer your questions faster, and it'll be a priority to get new benefits and new features or whatever. So that's pretty interesting that they're already charging. I think we all knew that they were going to charge, but I didn't necessarily think it was going to be this quick. However, jump on the money while it's there. I don't blame them. 100% get that money. It's a business. Speaking of business and money, this is an old article, but I just want you to see the headlines here. It says, Steve Jobs' personality changed after Apple's success. And that's according to Steve Wozniak. And again, this is an old article, but if for those of you who've ever taken one of my classes, you would know I talk about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates quite a bit because I'm much older. So, younger kids may be talking about Tesla all day, every day at university. But, when I was teaching, we would talk about Woz and Steve Jobs. And this matters is because Steve Wozniak gave an interview just yesterday, and you guys can find it, but I'll just give you a bit of the highlights. He was talking about essentially Elon Musk and comparing him to Steve Jobs in a negative way. If you read the headline here, it says, Apple co-founder says that Elon Musk, like Steve Jobs, wants to be seen as the important person and be like a cult leader. And Wozniak really has no love for Elon Musk. And I'm a big fan of Wozniak, to be perfectly frank. I really like the guy. I think he's an interesting person. And also shows you too, not everyone in the world is chasing the most money, and not everyone in the world wants to, have their workers work 24/7 and not pay them and just, be rude to people, et cetera. Not everyone is like that, right? So Woz is a good guy from my understanding, but I haven't met him personally. However, I'm going to read some quotes of this. This is again coming from Wozniak. I put them in the category, talking about Steve Jobs and Elon Musk here. I put them in the category of having the ability to communicate and wanted to be seen as the important person and be like a cult leader. And then it says, a lot of people will follow them no matter what they say. My life has been based on total honesty. This is Wozniak talking again. Everything you say is totally honest. You don't hide things. You don't make things up. You don't make yourself seem better. And a lot of honesty disappears when you look at Elon Musk and Tesla. And further, he's saying, that Musk and Tesla robbed his family of money due to the company's claim about self-driving technology. I actually watched the interview, and essentially he was saying, hey, we bought a Tesla in 2016, and Musk was like promising that full self-driving would be a thing, and you can drive across the country. And then Wozniak looked at his watch and was like, well, it's 2023, and we still don't have full self-driving. So Wozniak's an interesting guy. He made a very good interview. I totally understand, guys, though, in the world that we live in right now, there's a lot of young people out there that really want a, real Iron Man in real life, real Tony Stark in real life, and just kind of looked up to Elon Musk as sort of replacing a Steve Jobs, because there is a segment of the population that needs that kind of person, and it is what it is. If you look at this as well, it's interesting. Ross Gerber, who is a big investor in Tesla, he's trying to get a board seat. This has been reported in the news, so essentially this is probably a thing. And when you do these kind of things, you link this to the press, and you're trying to send a message to the company. Basically, they just want Elon to cut out the shenanigans and get back to normal. I don't necessarily like or dislike Ross Gerber. I don't know much about him. All I know is I know he hangs out with Meet Kevin. I don't like Meet Kevin. I can tell you that very clearly. And I was looking at this as well. It was interesting. Ross Gerber went to my school, and Elon went as well. Ross and Elon are older than me. I think they might have know each other from school. There is a possibility that because they were there at Penn at the same time. So I just want to mention that. I thought it was kind of interesting, but I don't really have much opinion on Ross Gerber. This was another big one. Again, I always try to give you guys news that I think is important, but may not necessarily make headlines just because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So there's going to be some changes to how 401ks are done. And I'm not a CPA or accountant. I just want to make that clear. And I don't work in HR. So, ask your company for details on this exactly. But I'll give you some of the highlights. So there's a couple ones that stand out. So one is if, say, you're saving for your kid's education in a 529 account, and you're kind of worried that your kid's not going to go to college, evidently, eventually, if to say they don't go, or maybe they get a scholarship and you have all this money and you don't have to use it for said college, you can actually roll that over into your 401k. So that's one change. I thought that was pretty interesting. There's another change as well is where some people were taking money out of their 401ks for emergencies during the pandemic, and then you pay a tax penalty on that. They're trying to change the system around to where maybe you might be able to borrow money from your employer. That's another one. Another change is they're looking at as you get older in life, you might want to double your contribution to your 401k. So they're changing laws on that. And then there's one that stood out as well, which is really fascinating, was paying back student loan debt, where your employers might be able to match you more easily. And all this kind of stuff is implications with tax laws. So I just want to mention to you, I think it's important. Like I said, I'm not an accountant, so please consult your accountant these kind of things and ask about this stuff at work. But these kind of regulatory changes matter quite a bit, and you do want to stay abreast of the law. And also, too, who knows, maybe in the future, employers will be offering this kind of stuff. I think the employer matching in terms of paying back student loan is a really interesting one. And we'll see if many new job offers will be putting that in the sort of package that they offer you, that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing okay. CPI data comes out, I believe, next week on Tuesday. We'll see how the markets respond. My personal opinion is, if the Fed is going to say, hey, we're raising rates, we're going to keep them there for a long time, I think it's hard to be bullish on stocks. That's just my opinion on that. But in all of these kind of things, though, you just wanted to diversify and put your money in different things. Don't bet on one horse. That's just not a great way to play. Pay off your variable interest rate kind of stuff, because rates are still going to stay elevated, right? Make sure you're securing your career as best as you can. And, get a mix of stocks and bonds and that kind of stuff, and stay tuned to this channel. So thanks again for watching one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.